Lorraine knew something was wrong the moment the janitor called her ma'am. Not miss, not Lorraine, just that crisp little blade of formality that slices you out of relevance. She was restocking the breakroom Keurig pods, again, because apparently none of the fresh-faced agile hires in marketing knew how to tell the difference between Colombian roast and diesel. She was pouring them into the drawer when the word landed on her like a loose ceiling tile. Ma'am. Langford Systems used to be a place where everyone knew your dog's name, and you brought your own damn mug. Now it smelled like Bluetooth and sugar-free ambition. After the buyout from Ravencore Capital, the office had been gutted and repackaged into some sort of millennial-friendly mausoleum. Gone were the paper files and the holiday potlucks. In came standing desks, motivational walls, and execs who wore sneakers that cost more than Lorraine's monthly mortgage in the 90s. Lorraine, 52, spreadsheet sorceress, master of passive-aggressive post-it warfare, had become background noise. 30 years of her life etched into system architecture, audit trails, payroll schemas no intern could decipher without her. And still, she was invisible. Not in the sad, please notice me way. More like a library, quiet, reliable, and tragically underfunded. She'd made peace with it, more or less. She kept a manila folder in her drawer labeled Sunset, filled with quirky data anomalies and dusty email threads she couldn't quite throw away. Notes about pension allocations from 09. Expense reports from a VP who accidentally billed an Aspen spa day as a wellness seminar. She didn't think of herself as paranoid, just prepared. The kind of woman who keeps jumper cables and a flask in the glove box. And if you're into stories like this, raw, real, with just enough corporate dysfunction to make you laugh while clenching your jaw, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Seriously, 97% of you are lurking without subbing. One click means a hell of a lot to the team bringing these stories to light. Keeps the Keurig running and the rage-fueled confessions flowing. Anyway, Lorraine's daily rhythm was predictable. Coffee by 8:03. Inbox purge by 8:15. Budget variance checks till 10. Soft reprimand to the new hires about pivot table hygiene around 11. Then lunch, usually something beige and reliable, eaten quietly while her younger boss, Tyler, MBA, teeth too white to trust, strolled through the kitchen like he'd invented synergies. She'd trained 3 of her last 4 managers. That's not a brag, that's a diagnosis. Tyler liked to circle back and ideate. Lorraine liked silence and decimals. He never asked her advice. He always made sure to use the report she built, stripped of footnotes and disclaimers to impress the board. When he did thank her, it was always with the sterile enthusiasm of a TED talk host. Lorraine, great alignment on those burn rates. Loved the consistency, as if she was an ergonomic chair. She didn't fight it. She wasn't there for glory. She stayed because of the people who weren't in the building anymore, the ones who had retired, who called her when a W-2 went missing or when their 401k login stopped working. She was their last link to a time when Langford meant something other than profit margins. So when she sat down that Friday and saw the subject line blinking in her inbox, internal only, financial realignment time sensitive, her stomach did a little somersault. It was 4:47 p.m. She clicked. Memo was dressed in classic HR camouflage. In light of ongoing market dynamics and with an eye toward long-term fiduciary responsibility, she scanned. Skimmed, froze, the pension fund, frozen, effective immediately. No prior warning, no meeting, just a paragraph in a bullet point sandwich. Her chair squeaked as she leaned back. The hum of the office had already faded, most of the juniors had bailed for happy hour. She looked out at the open floor plan, sterile and silent, and for a moment she felt like the last person on a spaceship drifting into a black hole. Then, from the corner of the office, Tyler's voice, bright and bubbly like a game show host. It's just cleanup, Lorraine. Nobody even checks email on weekends. She didn't respond, not yet, but something inside her did, like a locked drawer slowly sliding open. Lorraine had read a lot of corporate sludge in her time, quarterly forecasts padded with buzzwords, performance reviews so neutered they could have doubled as lullabies, but this memo? This was surgical, precision apathy. The opening line was almost poetic in how little it said. Effective immediately, Langford Systems will be undergoing fiduciary recalibration in line with Ravencore's broader capital preservation model. She read it again, then again. By the third read, her fingers twitched toward her calculator out of muscle memory, as if math might explain away the bile building in her throat. Then it hit her. All existing pension distributions are to be suspended pending final review under new financial stewardship. No date, no reassurance, no contact person, just a freeze, at 4:47 p.m. on a goddamn Friday. She blinked at the screen like it might correct itself if she stared hard enough. But no, the words stayed there, clean, cold, and utterly final, like a tombstone written in calibri. She opened her planner. No meeting on this, no briefing, nothing in the leadership Slack. Just this stealth kill shot, released exactly 30 minutes before close of business, when HR was already ghosting and legal would be halfway through their airport gin. Then came the cherry on this dry corporate turd Sunday, 5 o'clock p.m. meeting Tyler's quarterly wellness sync. Lorraine considered skipping. She hated these little theater pieces, but she walked in anyway because instinct told her that silence now would be complicity. The conference room smelled like lemon sanitizer and deceit. Tyler stood at the head of the table in his startup casual vest, practically vibrating with smugness. The other managers nodded along while pretending not to read their phones. Someone laughed too loud at a wellness slide showing yoga poses on beanbags. And then Tyler dropped it. Look, folks, I know today's update probably caught a few of you by surprise, but it's just cleanup, Lorraine. Nobody even checks email on weekends. Her name, tossed out like a dog treat. She didn't blink, didn't flinch, just stared at him as the bile in her throat went acid hot. Clean up, he said, as if decades of savings could be bleached out like coffee stains on a quarterly balance sheet. As if real people weren't out there, opening their mailboxes Monday morning expecting checks that wouldn't come. She could already see the fallout. The retired maintenance tech in Dayton who called her every year just to confirm his tax forms were right. The widowed receptionist in Tampa who once baked Lorraine cookies after she helped fix her pension deposit. All of them trusting, aging, unseen, now cut off with a memo and a smirk. Lorraine opened her notebook. She wrote nothing, just tapped the pen against the page and let her face go perfectly blank. That was the moment she knew. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. They buried the grenade at 4:47, knowing no one would lift the rug until Monday. And Tyler, grinning like a man who thinks ethics are a subscription add-on, had just lit the fuse. Lorraine didn't speak, but something deep inside her cracked sideways. Not loud, not visible, but irreversible. By 8:10 a.m., Monday, Lorraine had already sent 3 emails, each more polite than the last, to HR, legal, and something called Finance Transition Ops, which sounded like a shell company inside a Bond villain's tax folder. Her subject line was clinical, clarification on pension disbursement interruption. No exclamation points, no accusations, just carefully chosen language about implications, impacted parties, and ethics. Even CC'd herself on her personal Gmail, just in case this became the kind of week that needed receipts. At 9:02 a.m., she got her first reply from HR. Thanks for reaching out, Lorraine. We understand this change may come with questions. We encourage all team members to lean into the transition with curiosity and grace. Remember, change is the only constant. Curiosity and grace? Was this a pension freeze or a TED talk? Lorraine read it 3 times just to be sure she wasn't hallucinating. Her left eyelid twitched. She looked at the signature, Haley, Director of People and Culture. A woman who once asked Lorraine what a deductible was during open enrollment. At 9:46, legal replied, or rather, they forwarded her concern to a general inbox and added a single sentence. This matter is under executive review and outside standard employee governance scope. Translation, shut up and back away slowly. By 10:15, Lorraine was leaning against the copy room wall, hands shaking, knuckles white around a manila folder she hadn't realized she'd brought with her. The hallway echoed with laughter, someone from sales celebrating a new client. The building carried on like normal while somewhere, a retired janitor in Cleveland would be getting ready to pick up heart meds with a pension check that wasn't coming. She marched back to her desk. Her inbox was now a polite graveyard of non-answers. No acknowledgement of retirees. No acknowledgement of risk. Not a single "we understand this is difficult." Just jargon vacuum-sealed in HR latex. Then came the worst one. A Teams ping from Tyler. Hey, saw you had some cuticus about the freeze. All good. Just remember, you're not technically a stakeholder in exec matters anymore. Don't want you stressing over stuff above your pay grade. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Smiley face. Smiley. Fucking face. Lorraine stared at it so long her screen dimmed. Then she stood, walked quietly into the private phone booth pod they'd installed last quarter to make the office more agile. She shut the glass door, sat down, and opened a blank resignation email. Her fingers moved automatically. 30 years of loyalty compressed into 2 paragraphs. She wrote it like a farewell letter to a company that had already ghosted her. No bitterness, just clean lines and exit dates. She even offered to onboard her replacement. When she finished, she stared at the screen. Her finger hovered over the mouse. Send. It would be so easy. Walk away. Let the vultures gnaw the bones of Langford Systems while she retreated into some half-retired version of herself. Start volunteering. Grow tomatoes. Open a wine bottle at noon and call it a schedule. But she didn't click, not because she was afraid, because it wasn't enough. Resigning would mean silence. It would mean she'd seen the grenade, watched it roll into the room, and just walked away. Lorraine closed the draft. No click, no fanfare. Just her reflection staring back in the black screen. Face flushed. Eyes wet, but not from sadness. From rage, not loud, not theatrical. Not even visible if you weren't looking closely. But it was there. And it was growing teeth. Tuesday night bled into Wednesday morning like a nosebleed on a white blouse. Slow, steady, hard to ignore. Lorraine couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that damn smiley face from Tyler's message, bouncing behind her eyelids like a cursed screensaver. She tried all her usual tricks, chamomile tea, crossword puzzles, organizing the spice rack alphabetically, but nothing calmed the static in her skull. So at 2:12 a.m., wrapped in a faded fleece blanket and sipping flat ginger ale, she did what she hadn't done in months. She opened the archive. It wasn't some dusty vault or secret USB drive stashed behind her fridge. Just a synced folder on her personal cloud, set to automatically save every email she ever BCC'd to herself. Nothing sexy, nothing illegal, just a digital breadcrumb trail she'd kept out of old habit and mild suspicion. She typed in a few keywords: pension, realignment, executive discussion, and there it was, a thread 6 months old. Subject line: strategic timing, Q3 exit options. The sender: Hunter C. / Raven Core strategic assets recipients, 8 people, all execs, all still employed. CC'd, one junior analyst she remembered, sweet guy, used to microwave fish at lunch and apologize profusely. Lorraine clicked it open. The first message was dry, some jargon about cost to liability ratios and generational rollover liabilities. But as she scrolled, it got worse, much worse. A VP joked, "Can we schedule the announcement post-market Friday?" Bury it beneath the football score's face with tears of joy. Another responded, "Friday night flush, baby. Classic play. PR won't catch it till Monday, and by then the retirees will have screamed into the void and moved on." Someone else, probably trying to impress, wrote, "Honestly, if we're gonna rip the Band-Aid, let's do it during Q3 to make room for Q4 investor candy. We kill the pensions, push a wellness rebrand, and let the PR team post some dog content to the company LinkedIn." Easy. Dog content. Like retirees were toddlers throwing a tantrum that could be soothed with a golden retriever gif. Lorraine sat still for a full minute. Her hand was clamped so tight around her mouse it had gone numb. She could feel her heart pounding behind her eyes. Not panic, rage, refined, distilled, weapon grade. She clicked select all, exported the thread. Made 3 copies, one to an encrypted folder she'd set up back when ransomware was trendy, one to a password-protected USB she hadn't touched since her divorce settlement, and one, just one, to a blank email draft addressed to nobody yet, sitting in her outbox like a lit match waiting for breeze. The worst part, the language. It wasn't just unethical, it was casual. They didn't see the pension freeze as a necessary evil. They saw it as a strategy, a flex, a win. A numbers game with no faces attached. Flush it Friday. Retirees will scream into the void. Q4 candy. Lorraine's hands trembled as she closed the laptop. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just whispered to the empty room, not this time, because now she didn't just feel rage. She had proof, and that changed everything. Lorraine didn't become the most quietly indispensable woman at Langford Systems by being loud. She knew how to move in the seams of the place, through invisible channels, past the ears of execs who only listened when you carried a title with a bonus clause. So when she decided to leak the email thread, she didn't blast it off in a blaze of martyrdom. She reached into her Rolodex, the metaphorical kind, coded into the folds of her brain, and started slow. Careful. Surgical. First, Frankie Delgado, retired union rep. Former bulldog with a mustache you could lose a sandwich in. He'd gone gray, but not soft. Frankie had fought tooth and nail to get pensions locked into Langford's original employee agreements back in '98. She remembered how he once nearly got escorted out for screaming fiduciary fraud in a board meeting. She found his number on an old spreadsheet buried in her downloads, dialed it on her burner flip phone like she was committing a felony. He picked up on the second ring. "Lorraine?" His voice cracked like a matchstick. She didn't have to explain much. Just a few words, freeze, timed release, jokes in the email, and Frankie went quiet. That rare, seismic kind of silence. Finally, he said, "Let me call a guy. Don't send anything yet, they'll trace it." Then he hung up. Next, she messaged Elena Voss, an old payroll analyst who'd left Langford last spring after Raven Core started pushing 7-day close cycles and caffeine pills disguised as performance gummies. Elena now worked remotely for a startup that sold AI-generated prayer journals. Lorraine's message was short. "Still got that encrypted email setup you used when they tried to dock our back pay? I've got something big." Elena replied within 10 minutes with a Proton mail burner and 3 words that landed like a steel-toed boot: "Do it. Now." She paused before sending the files. Watched her reflection in the monitor, face drawn, hair back in a clip she'd bought at CVS during a panic break last week. She looked like someone who had just realized her loyalty was used as insulation. Back at the office, the absurdity bloomed. On Thursday morning, Tyler swung by her cubicle, holding a folder like he'd discovered fire. "Lorraine, you're gonna love this," he beamed, flashing those veneers that always looked like they were fresh from a wax museum. He dropped the packet on her desk with a dramatic flourish. "Next quarter's theme is wellness and retirement. We're putting together an outreach campaign. Needs your touch. You've got the senior perspective, right? That word, senior." He said it with the smirking innocence of a man who never once considered his bones would get old. She smiled, nodded. "Oh, absolutely. Nothing says wellness like being robbed blind just before bingo night." Tyler didn't catch it. He was already halfway back to his glass fishbowl of an office, humming something from a commercial that probably sold vitamins or betrayal. Lorraine opened the packet. It was a pitch deck for a digital newsletter called The Golden Hour. Fonts in pastel. Pictures of retirees doing yoga in front of iPads. A sample article title, Invest in Joy, Why Downsizing is the New Self-Care. She actually snorted, out loud. Downsizing, huh? Was that before or after they froze the funds? She turned back to her burner inbox. 3 unread replies. One from Frankie. One from an old journalist contact he'd looped in, Janine someone. She remembered her from a Christmas gala years ago where Janine had worn combat boots and cornered the CFO about offshore bonuses. And one from the anonymous Proton Mail tip line at the SEC. Each message was just a heartbeat in code. Got it. Confirming authenticity. Will advise. Timestamped and logged. No direct reply necessary. Lorraine leaned back in her chair. Packet of pastel lies in her lap and smiled. They had no idea. She was helping them write a wellness and retirement campaign, while kneecapping their financial apocalypse plan from the inside. And oh, how well she felt. Lorraine's kitchen light buzzed like an old insect, soft and persistent, the kind of sound that makes you feel like something's watching you. The house was still. Even the fridge had gone quiet, like it was holding its breath. She sat in her worn armchair, folder on her lap, a cold draft whispering under the back door. On her screen, the thread, not the whole thing, not anymore. She'd spent the last 4 hours slicing it down to the bone. No jokes, no editorializing, no big dramatic exposé, just quotes, timestamps, subject lines, forward headers, a grotesque anatomy of betrayal presented in chronological order, like an autopsy report for morality. She'd redacted just enough. Took out the junior accountant's name, the poor kid who'd warned her months ago with a nervous joke and a jittery hand. They're going to try something sketchy with the pension ledgers, like end-of-quarter cleanup but darker. He hadn't even looked her in the eye when he said it. Just left a cryptic sticky note on her monitor and resigned the next week. She replaced his name with redacted and left his warning untouched. Let the readers draw their own conclusions. Then came the cover note. It wasn't even a paragraph. She knew better than to over-explain. The following is an internal thread involving senior executives at Langford Systems and Raven Core Strategic Assets, discussing the strategic timing of pension fund freezes to minimize scrutiny. These communications span 6 months. Recipients include C-suite leadership. Recipients of this email are free to verify headers and sources. Forward freely. Concerned employee. She copied it into 3 separate messages. First, Janine Maris, the investigative journalist, known for her polite ruthlessness. Lorraine remembered her calling a pharmaceutical CEO a sad little man with expensive socks live on public radio. Second, Silver Truths Forum at ModMail, the email for a retiree advocacy group she'd followed for years. Their founder once got a leaked audio clip played on C-SPAN. Third, whistleblower at SecGov with a subject line that simply read, Langford/Raven Core potential pension misconduct. She didn't blind send. She sent separately, different devices, different times. She used a VPN, cleared her cache, covered her webcam like a teenage hacker in a spy movie. Every click felt like cracking open a rib cage. The moment the last sent confirmation appeared, she didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She just closed the laptop and walked over to the liquor cabinet. Not the little display case in the kitchen, no, the real one. Behind the pantry door, behind a row of canned soups she kept for tornado season. She pulled out the bottle of Lagavulin 16 her ex-husband never liked. Said it tasted like burnt sticks and regret, which was exactly what she needed. 1 glass, no ice. She sat at the table, still in her office slacks, cardigan sleeves pushed up just enough to show the indentation from her watch. Outside, nothing changed. No thunder. No lightning bolt of justice splitting the sky. Just the dull hum of a tired suburb digesting another weekday. But inside her, still, focused, like the eye of a tornado she knew damn well was on its way. She didn't check her email again, didn't scroll, didn't wait. She just sipped, slow and steady, the scotch sliding down her throat like fire-fed truth. Whispered, let's see who blinks first. The glow of Lorraine's screen hit her like a backhand, cold, bright, merciless. She hadn't meant to check, not this early, not like this. But her body woke her before the sun did, dragged her from sleep like it had a job to do. She shuffled into the kitchen, still in last night's clothes, hair matted against one side of her head like she'd fought the pillow and lost. Her stomach was a brick. Her mouth, sandpaper. She only meant to peek. But when she opened her inbox, it didn't just ping, it detonated. 29 unread, 41, 57. Subject lines stacked like dominoes. Urgent, retiree response please read. Do you know who leaked this? NYT front page, Langford execs under fire. Friday flush quote causes backlash. Lorraine's breath snagged somewhere between her throat and ribs. Her heart started to thud, sharp and uneven, like someone was knocking from the inside. She clicked one, just one, from Janine the journalist. It's blowing up. NYT went with it. Washington Post has the thread. CNBC's quoting the flush at Friday line. Pull quote of the day, you anonymous? She clicked the link and there it was. Front and center on the New York Times homepage, an article titled, Corporate Culling, How Langford Gutted Retiree Pensions Before the Weekend News Cycle. Just beneath it in block quotes, bolded, flush it Friday. AB, classic play, PR won't catch it till Monday. Internal executive email, Langford Systems the bile came up so fast she barely made it to the sink. She didn't puke. just hung there, palms pressed against cold porcelain, heart hammering behind her ears like a SWAT battering ram. She'd done it. She'd set the fire. And now it was everywhere. CNN ran a lower third. Langford pensions suspended. Retirees outraged after internal emails leak. Fox had a hot mic clip of a former Raven Corps consultant muttering, well, they were going to find out eventually. Even local stations had it, interviewing teary retirees in grocery store parking lots holding up letters they'd received the week prior, standard benefits update forms that now read like poison pen notes. Lorraine's phone buzzed in the other room, her real phone, not the burner. She didn't touch it, didn't have to. She knew what was coming, panic. Spin control, corporate emails with subject lines like clarifying our commitment or let's lean into transparency. She stood frozen in her kitchen, hands shaking, the bitter aftertaste of scotch still on her tongue, her jaw locked so tight it ached. She'd gone too far, or had she not gone far enough? Her inbox was now chaos. One retiree had written, God bless whoever sent that. You saved my house. Another just typed, whoever you are, thank you. But another message chilled her more than all the others, from an internal Langford address. No name, no signature, just a subject line, did you? 3 words, not a threat, not a confirmation, just the question, did you? Lorraine stood in the center of her linoleum kitchen like she was on trial in a silent courtroom. Her robe was slipping off one shoulder. The window over the sink showed the first crack of dawn slicing across the sky like a warning flare. Panic clawed at her ribs. What if they traced it? What if they fired her? What if they sued? What if nothing happened and they kept going, kept winning, and every retiree got left holding the receipt while Raven Corps popped champagne in a boardroom? She took a breath, a deep one, then clicked open another email from the retiree forum. The subject line read, Bless you, you were our last shot. Lorraine stared at it for a long time, then whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Then I'm glad I didn't miss. By Sunday night, Langford's official response slithered out like an apology from a politician caught in his second family. The statement was exactly what Lorraine expected, noncommittal, polished, and soaked in lukewarm PR vomit. We are aware of recent media coverage surrounding internal communications regarding pension restructuring. Langford Systems and its partners at Raven Corps Capital are committed to transparency, integrity, and the well-being of all stakeholders as we move through this evolving chapter. Evolving chapter. Like they were writing a Gotham Beach novel instead of detonating the financial security of hundreds of retirees. But the retirees weren't buying it. They didn't wait for permission. They mobilized. Within hours, the Silver Truths Forum exploded into action. A retiree in Michigan posted a full script for call-in protests. Another in Arizona linked a Zoom call where dozens read the Friday flush email, aloud on loop, and streamed it live to LinkedIn under the tag #FlushLangford. A woman in South Carolina uploaded a TikTok of herself holding up her pension freeze letter while her grandson danced behind her in a diaper with a sign that read, My Nana got robbed by Raven Corps. By Monday morning, investor hotline collapsed. Langford's call center tech couldn't handle the volume. A full-blown digital sit-in kicked off at 8:03 a.m., clogging their system with so many auto-dialing retirees that one rep tweeted anonymously, I've heard the phrase flush it Friday 216 times before lunch. Make it stop. Stock dropped 11.3% by the first coffee break. Langford leadership, in full tailspin, opened a whistleblower hotline, the PR equivalent of shoving a smoke detector into a house already engulfed in flames. They offered amnesty for transparency to any employee who stepped forward. Lorraine watched it all unfold in real time. She didn't gloat, didn't posture. She just dressed like it was any other Monday, gray slacks, sensible flats, cardigan the color of old oatmeal. She walked into the building at exactly 8:55 a.m., coffee in hand, badge already clipped to her hip. She passed the marketing team who had clearly been called in early. Their faces looked like toast left too long under a heat lamp. When she reached her floor, she saw him. Tyler. His hair, usually shellacked into a boy band swoop, was wilted. His dress shirt was wrinkled in a way that screamed panic ironing. He was on the phone, pacing, voice just a little too loud. I don't know who sent it, okay. I just know the phrase flush it Friday is on a goddamn coffee mug someone's selling on Etsy right now. Lorraine made eye contact with him exactly once. He looked away faster than a guilty dog. She didn't stop, just nodded faintly and slid into her cubicle like it was any other day. Opened her drawer, pulled out a crossword, filed a PTO request online for Friday. Subject, Personal Wellness Day. Reason, to reflect on corporate integrity and its mysteries. By 9:30 a.m., someone had taped a copy of the NYT article to the fridge. By 10:15, legal was camped out in HR like cockroaches after a flood. Lorraine didn't blink, she sharpened her pencil. Filled in 5 down to expose often anonymously. 7 letters answer, whistle. And for the first time in weeks, her coffee didn't taste bitter. It tasted like justice. They summoned her like royalty calls for the executioner, polite, perfumed, and already knowing the blood's on their own hands. The email was euphemistic to the point of insult. Lorraine, the board would appreciate your presence at an informal transparency briefing to discuss the events of the past week. No time for questions. Just a room, a slot on the calendar, an unspoken dare. She wore navy, the same blazer she'd worn to her mother's funeral and her divorce mediation. A garment soaked in dignity, silence, and just enough starch to remind the world you can't be bent unless you allow it. The boardroom was glass and steel and hollow noise. A dozen faces that smiled without smiling, legal advisors, PR vultures, and the newly reanimated corpse of the CFO who hadn't spoken to her in years. At the head sat Meredith Langford, the founder's daughter turned executive chairwoman, skin pulled tight like a drum stretched over unresolved guilt. Lorraine, Meredith began, voice dipped in velvet and veiled suspicion, we appreciate you coming in. These past few days have, obviously, caused disruption. Lorraine nodded once, I've noticed. One of the compliance officers leaned forward, hands folded like origami. We'd like to understand how internal documents, particularly sensitive financial communications, may have become vulnerable. Like ethics were a spreadsheet cell that accidentally spilled its formula. It didn't say leak, didn't say you, but she saw it in their eyes, like they were waiting for a confession to fall out of her mouth and relieve them of having to fake surprise. Lorraine kept her hands folded in her lap, calm, dry. If you're asking if I saw the documents in question, the answer is yes. Months ago, a beat of silence. Another board member, some regional strategy lead with a necktie that looked like it cost more than Lorraine's car, cleared his throat. You didn't feel it necessary to escalate? She tilted her head slightly, the way a hawk might before deciding where to tear first. I did, to HR, to legal. Got told I wasn't a stakeholder, that I should embrace change with curiosity and grace. She turned to Meredith, locked eyes. Maybe next time don't schedule ethical collapse at close of business Friday. Makes it a little hard to file a concern when everyone's already at their lake house. You could have dropped a pin on a mouse's sneeze and heard it hit the floor. Meredith blinked twice but said nothing. Lorraine stood, I assume this concludes the transparency. No one stopped her. No reprimand, no security escort, just silence, the heavy, terrified kind that follows a bomb they haven't figured out how to explain yet. She walked out steady, through reception, down the elevator, out into sunlight that somehow felt warmer than usual. By Wednesday, the open letter dropped, posted on every retiree forum, emailed to every major news outlet, read aloud during a live stream that peaked at 112,000 viewers. Written by Frankie Delgado. We may never know who inside Langford had the courage to speak when silence was easier. But whoever you are, you saved lives. You reminded them that we existed, that we still mattered. And to us, you'll always be the quiet voice that said, not this time. Lorraine read in her kitchen, eating scrambled eggs and watching her coffee steam curl into the sunlight. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just whispered, good. Then folded the letter and finished her crossword. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.